Hey there, welcome back to Supercharged Fridays, 120 weeks of live streaming. Hello, how's your Friday going? Morning, afternoon, evening? If you're in Singapore, India, are you getting dinner? What's going on? Tell us hi. Tell us where you're tuning in from. We have such a juicy topic today. We're going to talk about what is a coach and do you need a coach? Like the whole thing, like what is this about? But before we do that, I just want to give a little bit of shout out to myself because yesterday I launched a product that I've been working on for weeks and weeks, and that is a script, a guide on writing effective emails when you're actively job searching and you are staring at this canvas and you don't know how to start, like how to get a referral, how to ask for recommendation on LinkedIn, how to write like complete cold outreach emails, how do you write to recruiter, all of that is in there. So check it out at superchargeyourself.com/email guide. And I'm so happy today to invite my friend Andrew Richards. Andrew and I were actually live together at the end of 2020. We had a fabulous discussion. We had tech issues, you name it. I left him for 15 minutes while I had issues with my connectivity. He was also on my podcast back then. He was one of my earliest guests. Has such an interesting backstory. So I'm going to link all of that in the comments. And without further ado, let's talk about all things coaching with my friend Andrew Richards. Welcome, Andrew.
Hey Sonal, so nice to see you again.
Nice to see you again. Please take note. This is the lovely Andrew Richards, not Richard Andrews. That happens a lot, right?
Every day, every day.
Every
Yeah,
day.
I think anybody with one of those names that can be switched around has that problem. But yeah, I do get
John
that.
Matthews. Oh, I totally get it. So let's talk about like coaching, Andrew. You have your, share of experience with it. So we're going to talk just so we can welcome our audience. You guys are awesome. You're tuning in from California, Finland, I'm guessing India, Ohio. Welcome, Amit. Welcome, everybody. Great to see you here.
Hi
And
everyone.
and we're going to talk about what is a coach. How is a coach different from a consultant and a consultant different from a mentor? Because I think these words get thrown around a lot, particularly coach. Andrew, I think you can help us with that. How do you know it is time? How do you know it's the time to get a coach for yourself? And how do you select one? Because there's millions of choices out there. It's very easy to get overwhelmed. And then how do you make the most of that experience, right? It's an investment you make in yourself. So we're going to cover all of this, Andrew. So before we get started, tell us a little bit like what do you do today?
Well, I coach people. So that was a short one. Yeah, I coach people all over the world, predominantly either in the USA or in the UK, it seems, and a few people in Europe. But these are people in all kinds of different life situations. Some are in startups, some are in huge established companies, some are private business owners. And the thing they all have in common is they want to get from point A to point B and they want to do it with some help.
Yeah.
As they want some kind of accelerator to help them with that, a sparring partner in a confidential and safe space to really explore some topics that will help them progress. So it's a pretty broad church, and I really enjoy doing it. It's great fun.
Yeah, I love it. And I know you're really good at what you do as well. So if you don't follow Andrew already, I highly recommend you do that on LinkedIn. That is how Andrew and I met on LinkedIn through his cheerful posts. The first time I saw you, Andrew, you literally had a fried egg on your head.
Oh, yeah, I remember that one. Yeah, that was about, I was trying to make a point about getting egg on your face, in the metaphorical sense of the word, embarrassment and caring what people think. So
Yes.
I took the very bold step of having an actual fried egg on my forehead for that post. That was a lot of fun to do, but
It
yeah,
was a lot of
yeah,
fun to do. I think, Andrew, it was 2 years ago. I still remember
yeah,
it, right? So it sometimes, you just got to do things that you think, what if it's a little risky? What are people
yeah.
going to, what is that expression? What if I fail? No, my darling, what if you fly? So, anyway.
Well, I've had lots of fun with LinkedIn, doing different things with it. It's enormous fun just, trying different things. And I must admit, I do less videos these days. Perhaps I should start those up again.
You should restart them. You're so good at them. Very short, fun snippets. And you're right. That wasn't a picture. That was a YouTube. That was a video of yours, where you're literally like, I'm standing in my garden with egg on my face. Like it's a huge. It wasn't plastic. It was an actual fried egg. And then you start eating it.
Well, I ate it afterwards. Yeah. Anyway, Yeah,
Fun.
creativity knows no bounds, clearly. Yeah.
It clearly doesn't. So definitely follow Andrew on LinkedIn and his website, Andrew M. Richards. So Andrew, you kind of talked to us about this. You kind of hinted at it already. What is a coach? I heard you say
Mm,
sparring partner, and I heard you
mm,
say safe space. Now,
mm.
the word coach, I think you need to earn the stripes. I think, right? Anyone
Mm.
can say they are a coach today. How
They
would you?
can, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's an unregulated industry, right?
Yes.
And if you look at LinkedIn and type in coach, you're going to get gazillions of hits. Everything from coaches for speaking, coaches for getting over, fears of flying, coaches for presentation, coaches for, well, you can just put coach and just end up with so many things. And I think most people are familiar with coaching, in sports or perhaps in music or any other human endeavor where there is someone alongside the person who is trying to get better at something. I guess the common theme is with all of those coaches and indeed most others, it's a forward looking thing. So a coach is working with you in the spirit of making progress forwards. And that's perhaps the key difference between a coach and I think you asked about a therapist or a counselor.
I think that's a good one. I wanted to add it, and I was forgetting something. So how would
Yeah,
you
all right. So you've got
define it?
three there. You've
Yes.
got coach, consultant, mentor. I guess the fourth one is a therapist
Yes.
or counselor. So let's
Yes.
deal with that too. Therapists and counselors are dealing with psychological trauma or psychological issues, and to some extent, they're going to be going backwards in someone's backstory and their history and helping them to recover from and resolve things that have happened in the past. So that's very much a rear view thing, looking at past events and seeking to resolve some of those with the client. And it's a therapeutic intervention, and that's not coaching. The past does play a part in coaching, but only for context. So, it's, for example, what someone has been doing with their life up to that point is useful information, but we aren't going to go digging up past traumatic events specifically with the aim of resolving them in the coaching engagement. So you also asked about mentorship. That's different again.
Yeah.
And a lot of coaches, particularly business coaches, will blend mentorship with the coaching. All of this needs to be designed with the client at the start of the engagement, of course. But mentorship is where somebody shares their experience of a situation so that the client can have access to that information and then perhaps choose not to make the same mistakes as the mentor did in the first place. So it's shared experience. And, particularly with things like, I don't know, startups, it's handy to have a mentor with you who has been through some of those early
Yes.
traumas of rapid growth before, let's say, or experienced those things. So that's mentorship. The last one there you had was consultants. Well, again, type in consultant to LinkedIn and wow, so many. It's a bit like a mentor, but maybe there's some expectation to come up with a strategic plan as well if you're a consultant for somebody. So there's a bit of coaching in there, perhaps a bit of mentorship, but the onus is give me the solution too. So that's where a consultant, is drawing on their strengths to point somebody in a more directive way to a solution. That's my understanding.
All right.
Others may differ. I'd be interested to see what people say in the comments.
Sure. No, I agree with you, and I think it's so unregulated, right? I am so sorry to see this, guys. You're saying that LinkedIn is being glitchy. It seems that LinkedIn doesn't like us very much, Andrew, because the last time you and I were together, we had issues as well.
Oh
And
dear.
such an important topic. I wake up at 5 a.m. He's in California. LinkedIn, behave yourself, LinkedIn. No,
Wow.
but this was a great summary. One thing I can recommend is maybe you guys, if you're having issues, one thing you can do is just close the app, shut it, like get out of it and come back again. Sometimes that works. I've seen that. So that's beautiful. That's a very clear distinction between, for me, it's quite clear: coach, consultant, mentor, and therapist. And one of the main things between therapy and everything else is therapy is focused on the past. That's what you're saying. A lot of times we get tempted to talk about that because we think it's going to help our client, but that's not coaching. That's therapy. So we want to be careful because you need to be licensed to be a therapist. So it's not, something that any of us can take lightly.
Yeah.
All right.
I mean, most coaches are trained to at least detect some of the things, if they've had training, that is, that may present to a therapist. So good coaches should be able to recognize signs of depression, anxiety, and other things, and maybe signpost to trusted therapists that they know. or failing that, nationally regulated websites. So here in the UK, we have the BACP, which is the register of, I think it's counsellors and psychotherapists. You can find registered therapists there.
Yeah. And I think that that's really important what you just said. If the coach is trained, they will, forward you to the right authority. If the coach is not trained, they'll try and help you and do the, problem,
Yeah.
solve the problem for you. That's not coaching.
That's an important point, actually. Not all coaches are trained in the conventional sense of the word. That's not necessarily a bad thing. You need to go by, and I think this answers one of your later questions in part, perhaps.
Yeah.
Look at results and referrals there in that case. So if someone's been recommended to you by word of mouth, multiple different sources, then that goes some way to alleviating any concerns you might have about someone's qualification to coach you. If you're accessing coaching through your company, then most companies would require you to find a coach who's qualified and done an appropriate level of training and perhaps registered with the ICF or the EMCC or what have you.
Yeah, makes perfect sense. You're getting ahead because that's a very juicy topic, that one, and we're going to get there. So, Andrew, how do you know it's time? How do you know it's time? And here I want to talk about something that is not openly talked about, and that is some stigma. If you think you need a therapist or you think you need a coach, your friends will joke around like something is wrong with you. You're cuckoo. Like, what's
Well,
there?
they're not your friends for a start, are they? There certainly is or was some kind of stigma about having help with almost anything.
Yeah.
So, and coaching and mentorship goes in that bucket. But the more self-aware we become, the less we need to appear strong, as it were. And having access to a coach is an enormously empowering thing. In terms of knowing when it's time, it's a very personal decision. If you've been wrestling with trying to make progress in a certain area of your life and you've just found that it's taking too long, or you're frustrated by it, or you're, confused, or, facing a blockage around what to do next, then that might be the right time to consider talking to a few coaches. And the process of having initial conversations, which is almost always a free thing to do with a coach, can be really beneficial in helping you see whether that's something that you want to do. So there's no prescribed answer to the right time, but remember, a coach and a coaching container, a coaching engagement accelerates what's already there. So if you've got a strong desire or intention in a direction to change something, then you've got to know that the right coach for you will accelerate that process with you and get you to your objective. So it's when you feel the need for acceleration, I'd say.
Right. That makes perfect sense. When you feel like you could get results a little bit faster, why is it taking me so long? How do you get those answers? Might be time.
Right. I mean, you can see a guitar behind me. If I was obsessed with it, which I'm not, I do love it, but I'm not very good. If I was obsessed, I might hire a coach, a teacher, a mentor, but a coach to help me with my guitar work, and I'd get there faster than me bumbling along, looking at Marty Music or Justin Guitar on YouTube and making a hell of a noise.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's that kind of analogy.
Yeah. No, I understand. That makes perfect sense. All right. Fantastic. So it seems like the issue is persisting because I'm not seeing comments, and I know you guys are struggling with it. So if this continues to happen, do join me on YouTube. I've put in the link on the LinkedIn comments, guys. Please join me on YouTube.
Yeah, it's good to know it's not our connection, Sonal. It's
No,
LinkedIn.
it's not us this time. And Andrew, how do you select a coach? You kind of hinted at it already, but there's so many choices, and even word of mouth can have there are different layers in there, and there's power in word of mouth, but not all are created equal. So tell us about how you found and how you recommend that others find a great coach.
Mixture of ways. So some coaches have examples of coaching recorded that you can watch. particularly, the really high-end ones, if you go to their websites, you might actually see live examples of coaching. I haven't done that myself because I think
Yeah.
it's a little bit intrusive, but
Yeah.
word of mouth comes in a few different ways. Someone at your company has suggested it to you, as we use these people and they're generally pretty good. So that's a kind of hands-off, not very intimate word of mouth. Or there's somebody that you know personally
Yeah.
who has had a real shift with a coach,
Yeah.
and knowing you and knowing them, they think you might go well together. And I think that's more powerful. If you've got somebody who knows both of you, the coach and the client, and can imagine that there's a possibility it could work well, that's a great starting point. But you don't really know until you do a Zoom with them, and you'll know in the first few seconds whether you feel comfortable talking with them. And after that, it's on the coach really to start pulling out some of the themes that you want to work on. And if they're skillful at that and you feel comfortable, those are good signs if it's been a recommendation to you.
Yeah. And you know, you'll know within the first few seconds, right? That's what you're
Yeah.
saying. Our instincts are telling us something. And so most coaches recommend sort of the first complimentary session to
Yeah.
establish this, right? Chemistry. Yeah. Um, Sorry, you were saying?
Well, there's a point about those chemistry sessions. It's a funny term, isn't it? Chemistry, but
Yeah. Yeah.
there is chemistry going on.
Discovery,
It,
discovery.
discovery chemistry, call it what you like. If you join one of those and the coach is saying, yeah, hey, what's up, what's going on for you, and leaves you to do all of the talking, which you might want to do, you might want to do a bit of a download for the coach. If you get the sense they're not actually asking any questions of you that are thought-provoking in that process, then the chances are they're not going to be doing that later either. So you get a feel for the skill in observation in that time. It's a very valuable time for you to see, is this person actually noticing me and noticing what's going on for me? How perceptive are they? What is their intuition like? And do I want any of the experience they might have had professionally as a hybrid coach / mentor in there? All these things you can be thinking about, but it's free to do that and explore it. The only thing I'd say is don't go and do loads of free initial consults with coaches if you're not seriously looking into it, because it's bad juju, it's bad karma. The coaches do need to make a living as well, so keep it down to a smallish number as much as anything else, so that you're not bamboozled by all the different possibilities. So maybe no more than 3 to 5 is a good number.
Yeah, okay. That's good that you're saying do your homework, but don't go
Yeah.
overboard, because you might be window shopping and then you're not serious, right? I mean,
Well, right, you get shopper's paralysis and don't actually get a really good feel for somebody.
makes sense, makes sense. I want to ask you something, Andrew. So let's say I have shortlisted 3 coaches, and let's say they're all trained. Okay. Now, what makes when you said great results, like the needle has moved, um, what makes one coach better than the other if they're all, let's say, equally skilled in terms of technical qualifications and everything, like they've got a solid reputation, but there'll be someone who gets maybe more results than others. So I'm asking from a point of view of the recipient, the coachee, on how to leverage this decision, because it is an investment they're making in themselves.
Yeah. So I guess that comes down to stickiness. It can be tempting to think that as soon as somebody has finished the coaching engagement and massive transformation takes place and that's it, job done. It doesn't always work in that way. Sometimes the ideas that are planted in a coaching engagement take a little while to germinate. And the reviews that people write about coaches or the feedback sometimes is delayed by a while for things to actually bed in.
Yeah.
It's quite a subjective thing in terms of which coach is better than the other. If you feel personally, having had multiple coaches or even seen other people have different coaches, that the person who was being coached actually went and did something material as a result of the coaching that they weren't going to do before, or would have taken them longer, that's what you're looking for. Something that actually got done a disposition or a behavior that changed, a way of looking at things that changed, an action that was taken. But given the outputs of coaching can be so variable, from relocating to a different country to getting a different job to buying a dog to giving up smoking, whatever it might be,
Yeah.
it's rather hard to do an apples to apples comparison about what makes
Yeah.
one coach better than the other.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. It's
It
a
is.
dance in the end. It's a dance. Imagine it this way: you go to a party, you dance with several different people. You might have enjoyed and had benefit and fun and a great experience dancing with all of them. Which one was better? One of them might have thrown better shapes. One of them might have smelled better. One of them might have been dressed better. Whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally know what you mean.
That's
And I'm
a weird analogy. I can't believe I said that. But anyway,
I can.
yeah,
It's also, yeah, like you said, it's so subjective. It's how we
Mm.
feel, and our feelings are subjective. So totally hear that. LinkedIn continues to be an issue. In fact, it's shut down. So thank you guys for joining us on YouTube. Risto says, my 2 cents. Is the coach challenging you in a good way? You simultaneously, like it's friendly and at the same time a tiny bit frightening. Do you agree with that, Andrew?
Yeah. I think challenge is expected in coaching. Otherwise, you don't tend to get much movement unless there's some challenge. But it doesn't mean you have to be unkind about it, right? So it's
Yeah.
possible to challenge people with courage and kindness at the same time.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. I think there's some people who take the whole brutally honest thing too far with more
Yeah.
brutal than honest. You want a supportive coach, right? Um, and
Right. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, and at the
Well.
same time, what you're saying is um, with kindness. Yeah, yeah. No, I hear you. It's a vibe. Tegan says it's a vibe. Whether you get it, or you
Yeah.
don't.
Do we jam together? Vibe is a good way of putting it. You'll
Yeah,
know. I mean, in those initial discovery chats, you'll know whether somebody is really tuned into you, and based on the recommendations and stuff, whether they've got what it takes to go on that journey with you.
yeah, yeah. Um, so Andrew, let's talk about the short term and the long term. I know you said that there's so many discoveries and there's so many light bulbs that go off after the coaching engagement is over, and I've seen this happen with my clients as well. What can people do more in the short term? Because we talked about acceleration of results, right? We all want results a little bit faster. We don't have
Mm.
that much time.
So, so in the short term, do the homework. Most coaches set some kind of homework, and I'm not a fan of sending people off to write stuff down or whatever often, but the thinking homework that's required when you've unearthed something big in a coaching session, and the coach, identifies that with the client and says, "Look, this seems to be a big thing for you." And there's an agreed suggested action that's going to be taken, and it might be to think about something while you're doing the dishes or taking the dog out.
Yeah,
Actually do that.
yeah,
Make sure you do it, because momentum gets lost if those things aren't captured. And one thing that I always do with my clients, which is a bit different, is leave my WhatsApp open the whole time for
yeah,
them. So as they are coming up with revelations,
yeah,
disappointments, expectations, all different human emotions, if they want to, they can journal it in our chat. I will see it if I'm not asleep or coaching someone else. And we keep our momentum going through the whole coaching engagement without it being punctuated by long periods of no contact. And that helps a lot with this idea of, keeping the short-term momentum going with a view to the long-term transformations.
that's amazing. I funny, I do the same, and it's like
Yeah,
brain
it's
dumping,
the
right? It's
yeah,
brain dumping, and they're like, something just came to me. I'm just gonna put it
yeah.
in the
A
chat.
brain
And
dump, whatever, just put it there. Voice notes, I love for that. Some people hate voice notes, but I say the ramblier the better. Just
yeah,
waffle on
yeah,
in your voice note. It
yeah,
takes no time because you don't have to type it. I'll listen to it. I'll send one back, and it's like we're still in the coaching, but it's not. For me personally, I don't find that a big drain or problem on my time. I'd rather know what's going on and keep the momentum going and
I,
enjoy the experience, in coaching that client and giving them
I
maximum value.
I agree. I think if more than a week or 10 days go by and there's no contact, and I'm like you said, I think it's very important what you said. Momentum. We go back to our old patterns and habits. And I love
Hmm.
that you said, don't worry, ramble on. The wafflier, the better. Because this is not a pitch. It's not a job interview. It's a,
No, exactly.
it's a conversation.
Yeah, I mean, for those who've never had a coach before, once you're comfortable with that person, then it's quite different to anything else you might have experienced because you do form a strong connection. It's very personal because you're talking about things that are going on for you. And that coach's job, their only job, is to notice you and be there in what's going on with you and to help you, unpack that and to make decisions, take actions, have shifts. So it's an intimate thing, but it's a good thing.
Yeah.
And if you're ready for it, it can be amazing.
Yeah. And like you said, how do you know you're ready for it? You reach that stage where there's maybe more frustration, Andrew, that sets in.
Yeah, yeah, sure. I mean, a lot of your work style is in the career world, right? So people reach frustration in that frequently, and I do some career coaching as part of what I do. That's a how do you know? I can't take this anymore. I've got to do something here.
Yeah.
I've run out of ideas. Do I stay? Do I go? Do I go for the promotion? Do I start my own business? I don't know where to start. All these different things swirling around.
Yeah. Yeah.
Coaches are great for unpacking that stuff.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. And one thing that you said that I really liked as well is when when we talked earlier and you said it right now, my WhatsApp group is open and I said I do the same and frequency, all of that. You need a coach that cares, right? Uh,
Yes.
that is something that I think it's not a transactional relationship only. They're rooting for your success, but they're not um, patronizing. But they still
Right.
care.
Yeah.
It's a balance, right? It's not a cheerleader. It's just somewhere in the
It's very subtle. So you guess you care, but you're not blowing sunshine at somebody. They're not paying you to say nice things.
no,
A coach is not a friend, and a coaches sometimes need to say things that are tough to hear
yeah,
for the client's
yeah,
growth.
yeah,
So that's a really important thing. Um, and yeah, you have to have it so that all kinds of things are possible in that coaching environment to be shared in the moment without any fear of it leaking out. It's a confidential space.
yes, yes,
Yeah.
100%. And another thing that I heard you say when we talked about how can you leverage it sooner, not only in the long term. And I heard you say, I mean, I read between the lines, but what you're saying is, you need to do your homework. So I think the hard work is the shortcut. If you want it, there's no other way.
Well, yes.
That's-
Hopefully, once people are established in their coaching relationship, they know that it's not a passive process. The client has to give power to the coaching relationship. Please don't start a coaching relationship and expect the coach to do coaching to you while you sit back and absorb it. It doesn't work.
Yeah,
Um,
no, no.
you actually have to want it and to be interested in looking at yourself and what you might need to change in terms of who you're going to be and what you're going to do.
Yeah, no, I
Whereas,
understand. And Najam, that's an answer to your question because he's saying, where is the control center? Is it with the coach or is it the coachee? So you just answered that. Anything else
yeah,
you want to add here?
it's the client's agenda with all of this stuff, and you have to be a bit careful when it comes to mentorship, and I'll explain why. It's the client's agenda, not the coach's. So the coach has, got to hold their role in terms of sometimes guiding the client in terms of where the session is going, but it's the client's agenda, it's the client's stuff. And the coach has no business in being attached to an outcome for the client. It's the client's values. The coach's values are going to be different, right? What I might want to do with my life is going to be very different to what you want to do with yours. But we're talking about you today. So my job is to help you remove barriers for yourself, not, project what I might be interested in. It's nothing to do with that.
Yeah, I think spoken like a trained coach right now because a lot of us attach our value to the outcome as a coach, and that's not the sign of a good coach.
And even in mentorship, that's true because, the mentee wants to share the experience of the mentor, but they don't want to have the mentor's values projected onto their situation. So it's, that's where the value is, and that's where, that's where the coaches and mentors earn their money if they're good in knowing how to do that without, messing things up for the client by getting overly involved with their own agenda.
Yeah, that's true. And I think that does happen sometimes, Andrew. Like I don't know if you've heard people tell you this, but one thing what people can do is, how do you select a good coach? I think you need to know kind of like what is their base. Do they have like dozens and dozens of clients? Because they may
Mm.
not have the bandwidth to take another person, but maybe they need the money or whatever. So you want to see that the decision makes sense not just for you but also for them. Because have you
Yeah,
seen something
a
like
good a,
diluted?
a, a good coach is a coach who doesn't need to work with you, right? So, um,
Mhm.
the grabby coaches who will work with anybody at any cost because they're hurting for clients doesn't make for a happy relationship.
Yeah,
So
coming.
watch out for that. Watch out for that. There are a lot of coaches out there, a lot of brilliant coaches, but also, like any profession, a lot that would like more work and may compromise on the fit in the conversation to get the client. And sadly, that does happen. And it's the same if you're hiring an accountant or a coach or a plumber or whatever. No
Yeah,
different in coaching. So
yeah.
let's be honest about that. So a coach who doesn't need to work with you is a good sign.
That's a
But
good thing.
a coach who wants to work with you and doesn't need to, even better.
Yeah, that's I think that's really well put. I think that when it's more about the bank account, then it comes from a place of scarcity and fear.
Yeah,
I'm not sure that's a great place to start a
it
relationship.
isn't.
Yeah,
Terrible place to start.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. Fantastic. I don't see any more questions. Tech has been a disaster. Second time with Andrew. Andrew,
I'm so sorry. Maybe that's it for us. Yeah.
no, this was really great. I think if you're catching us on YouTube, you're catching us on the replay. I'm going to do a quick recap. If you're watching us live, we talked about a lot of things today. What is a coach? How is a coach different from a consultant, a mentor, and a therapist? Because I think the word coach gets used interchangeably for all of these terms. We also talked about how do you know it's the time to hire a coach and work with somebody, because it's a key decision, it's a key investment you're making in your career, in your life. And how do you select one if you have a bunch of options in front of you? We covered how do you make the most of this relationship, both in the short term and the long term. So this has been fantastic. I'm so happy, Andrew. We talked about this. I think this is a very important conversation. So if
Well,
you want
thanks for
to,
having me. Thanks for
no,
having me on. I'm so sorry about the tech. I don't know what else to say
or
about
no,
that.
something about learning to become a coach. I think we learn to get more aware and get less attached to stuff like this.
It doesn't matter. Yeah.
Which 3 4 years ago would have bothered me no end, and now it's like, it doesn't matter. So definitely follow
Mm.
Andrew on LinkedIn. Andrew, this has been a pleasure. Thank you so much, and thank you guys
Thank
for
you.
being such a great sport and being with us today. And join me live next week at the same time, hopefully under better technical circumstances. I will be with Tiffany Uman, who is in Canada, and we're going to talk about all things promotions at work. So
Mm.
thanks
Sounds
very much.
interesting.
Yeah, thanks, Andrew. Take care, everybody.
Bye. Bye.